Good morning, everyone. Super excited. I was about to say it's a Monday, but we know that's not the case. Nani Boss is just a little confused on her date. It is Wealth Wellness Wednesday, one of my favorite days of the week, obviously. But good morning, everyone. We're excited to have a guest today. This is Carol Sue, aka Nani Boss, live with
TwoSistas. Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Janice, aka Wellness Diva 5.0. Carol Sue was traveling. I was traveling. Then Carol Sue's traveling again tomorrow. So we are messed up with our dates. But, you know, Wealth Wellness Wednesday, absolutely Carol Sue's favorite. It's my favorite too. But, you know, I have a lot of different favorites. So, you know, today it's my favorite because we have an amazing guest on. My screen just went blank. Sorry about that. Kerry, welcome to the TwoSistas family. We both want to welcome you. I just want to do a little introduction though first, of course, because you have a very, very interesting background. And Kerry is a doctor of physical therapy. She's also a 500-hour certified yoga coach. That's a lot of yoga. And a personal trainer. But you just didn't get there from the credentials that you have. I think the background story is where we need to start. So welcome aboard again, and let's get the conversation going.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here. I really is truly honored. And I love Wealth Wednesdays as well. I think it's a great thing to focus on during hump day. But yes, as you said, you know, my journey to where I am today was not a straight line by any means. And I'm so grateful to be a physical therapist and a yoga teacher and all of that amazing things. And I'm so grateful to have the education I do, but that doesn't make me who I am today and what I do today. I joke that my story is kind of a series of unfortunate events that got me to doing what I am doing now. And it started when I was 16 and just kind of between, you know, I had an injury when I was 16 that required surgery, and that helped me fall in love with physical therapy. I was really sick in college. I had this weird kind of inflammatory arthritis disease, and that led me to this more holistic looking at life, led me to meditation. Some trauma in my past led me to dive into mindfulness and other ways to kind of to take care of myself at the end of the day, finding all these different ways to better take care of myself, my nervous system, my body. And I've weaved that into everything that I do with my current clients at this moment.
That's amazing. Carol Sue, I know that we can all speak to what Kerry's talking about to so many different degrees, but I'd love to get your input on the topic of conversation.
Well, when you were talking about pivoting, Kerry, what was this a direction that you were mindful of, or you're like, well, that came out of left field?
You know, every step along the journey kind of came out of left field in a right. You know, I was always an athlete, always super active as a kid. I always knew that I wasn't going to have a traditional office job where I was just sitting at a computer all day. That was a given. But everything else kind of came out of nowhere. The only reason I fell in love with physical therapy was because I had an amazing physical therapist when I was 16. The only reason I got into yoga was because I was so anxious and I was in so much pain. I wasn't allowed to run. I wasn't allowed to jump. I wasn't allowed to weight lift. So I just was like, I need to do something. And someone somewhere was like, try yoga. And I went and I fell in love. So there was a lot of these little sparks that kind of just plopped into my journey that I was like, you know what, let's try it. Let's go in that direction. And I just ran with it to a certain extent as well. Yoga was kind of the biggest one that came out of left field. I played college lacrosse and I knew what yoga was, but I never really tried it. I stretched, but I never really tried a full yoga class. And then I tried it, fell in love, and I think less than a year later, I became a teacher. So,
it's so funny that, we always say that people are placed as part of our journey. Sometimes it's for a pivot. Sometimes it's to redirect, the path that we initially thought we were going to take. And we get surprised that it brings us to a different journey, which then new goals are established, new dreams are established. And part of that process, you're probably going to pivot again to something other than that, but they all correspond. And I love that there was certain people in your life that, you may not necessarily have chosen. They were put in your life for various reasons, for physical wellness, for physical therapy. And, those were, I kind of look at as guardian angels that were guarding your journey. They didn't know that they were guarding your journey, and you didn't know. And God has a way. I always believe that the universe has a way to bring different people in your life for different perspectives and or direction that you may not even know, the course of where you're going, but you just go anyways. So I absolutely love that. I'm interested in the yoga piece now. We often, when we have a guest speaker that talks about yoga or is passionate about yoga, which is not one of my passions, by the way, if they could make a comedian or a comedy yoga class, I might consider it. My issue, and I've talked about this on the air many times, is because it does take concentration. You're really a lot of mind over matter with your body and moving your body into positions, which are sometimes just not the prettiest looking positions.
Right.
So I tend to start laughing. I interrupt the class because I can't get my giggle off. And okay, sorry guys. I'll try another class. Bye. I wish they would make some sort of comedian version of yoga.
Oh my goodness, you would love the studio I teach at right now. I'm very blessed to teach at a yoga studio. I currently live in Boston, and I teach at a local yoga studio, Chakra Power Yoga, and the owner of the studio has just made such a welcoming, light environment. Like, yes, yoga is serious. Yoga, there needs to be a level of mindfulness, of body awareness, but there's also a level of not taking yourself so seriously, because there's so many things in our life that we do take so seriously, and rightfully so. But she's created such an environment. I was actually in her class last night, so I was laughing when you're saying that. She just got us in a weird position, and she's cracking jokes where I'm trying to hold myself in this weird position, but I'm laughing so hard. It's a different environment, and not saying there's not a place for more serious, contemplative, meditative yoga. I've done that, but especially, over the past couple of years, we need community. We need that sense of we're all in this together, even if we look ridiculous. We need that community. And I'm just very blessed to be at a yoga studio that the owner has really cultivated that. And I'm the weirdo, making metaphors that are just bizarre. Then I'm I understand that doesn't make any sense, but we're going to roll with that metaphor. So I think there is a time and a place for some of that comedian yoga, as you call it, to create community, and so that you don't feel as silly doing something that you're what the heck am I here for doing?
Exactly. And I think the beauty of, your owner at your studio is really, and probably she doesn't realize what she's doing. She's, obviously, the world has been in a stressful situation. We do need things to calm us and put us in that relaxing state. But I would bet if more studios cultivated that atmosphere of, yoga 101 with shits and giggles, you might inspire those people that are like me, who can't get over the giggles of getting into these weird positions, and then obviously learn to appreciate the seriousness side of it if they kind of went through a comedian course.
Right. And there's no perfect way to do yoga, right? It's not, and it's the same, I believe, at least with a lot of different wellness things. There's certain things that are going to land for certain people. And that's kind of what I do with my clients. I have all these tools, this whole tool basket. Yoga is one of them. And it's not about making you fit the yoga. It's about making the yoga or the mindfulness or the meditation or the breath work or whatever it is that we're doing fit you and your lifestyle and your goals. And I think when it comes to yoga, there is a deep history there. There's something to be honored, but there's also a modern adaptation as to where we are and who we are right now, and how that changes for every person. And one of my biggest pet peeves is when people say oh, I can't do yoga because of X, Y, Z. I'm not flexible enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not Zen enough. I'm not whatever, you put the adjective there.
Right.
And I just don't subscribe to that. I think anyone can do yoga. It's just about finding what fits for you And that's going to look different. And that might look different. Like the yoga I do now is very different than the yoga I was doing 2 years ago. And it shifts. It's always shifting and evolving and adapting for yourself.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
And the other thing that I caught there, which I think a lot of people hang on to this word, is lifestyle.
Mhm.
Because when you think of changing your lifestyle, there's kind of a negative connotation. Like we think, okay, we have to go on this diet, we have to do this, and this. But what you pointed out was choosing it in such a way that complements your lifestyle. And yes, there is change involved, and you can only get to your goals when you simplify and make changes to your lifestyle. So I was wondering if you could maybe chat about that a little more. Like, for instance, maybe a client comes to you and says what you were just saying, well, I can't do yoga because this, and this. Say we're in a session together and I just filled you with a lot of crap.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know, because I think that's really important, for people who are considering it. And I'll tell you about a conversation I had partly, but I think it's important to know because, maybe they can go into this conversation with a potential yoga teacher and kind of, ask those questions.
I think my views on this come from being a physical therapist as well, and my views on kind of the modern medical world. I think there's too much of, whether it be fitness, medicine, a lot of different, even wellness sometimes, even just that holistic wellness. There's a lot of do it this way, do it that way, and do it one way. And while there are certain things that I believe are, I don't want to say the best, but the best for me, and I choose to either live my life a certain way or make certain choices, I don't think all of my choices are going to be perfect for you and in the same way. And I think whether it's yoga or medicine or wellness, there's too much of people being like, well, my way is the right way, so do it this way. And this is where you'll land. You'll be just like me. And it's really not about being just like me or just like anyone else out there. It's about finding the tools that work for you, whether that be different yoga styles, paces, different meditation styles, different workout styles, different ways of eating. Yes, does research show certain things are probably, vegetables are probably better than us than like a bag of like gummy bears? Yes, but there is other things where for some people walking might be way better than running, or yoga might be way better than weightlifting. And it's about finding out what you need at any given time. And that takes some investigation. So that's when someone kind of comes in for one-on-ones, we go deep into like their history, deep into their goals, what they want to be doing with their life, and even taking a step forward, how they want to feel. How do you want to feel when you walk out of a yoga class? You're like, I just need to calm down and like relax. Maybe it's a restorative class, or it's like, I need to like work through some stuff and like get it out. Maybe it's a hot power class. There's all different ways that you can, and I'm gonna use the word manipulate. I don't love it because I think it has a negative connotation, but manipulate these factors so that you can better serve your body and yourself, and not just doing what some influencer online is saying this is the perfect fitness and diet and wellness routine.
I absolutely love that. And I often think of a lifestyle as a recipe. You know, how many times do we have that favorite cheesecake? I'm going to use cheesecake just because I saw Sandy Kern, one of our repeat offenders on Two Sisters, coming up with a new recipe for her mom's cheesecake. And I was saying to her, I said, oh my God, like that's would probably be my ultimate favorite. However, the after effects of me eating cheesecake were not good. So, I learned to say, it wasn't worth it. And she's already changing the recipe for those dietary needs of gluten-free, dairy-free. So I love that. And I actually think of when I hear the word lifestyle and living the best life that we deserve, it is a recipe, because you can take a favorite recipe and tweak it a little bit to fit like either your flavors, or, you don't want to use as much sugar, you don't want to use white flour, you want to use gluten-free flour. And that's how, our life should be. Our lifestyle should be a recipe that fits all aspects of our lives. And the beauty of a recipe / lifestyle is you can tweak it and change it as your lifestyle needs. I mean, obviously, someone who is like me, who's 64, I can't do the type of fitness. And I shouldn't say I can't. I choose not to do the kind of fitness that I might have done, or that, maybe someone in their 20s or 30s different, because I'm at that stage where I think of longevity, which we should all think about longevity regardless of age. But I want to make sure that I'm not going to put my, structure, my bones, muscles, or whatever, push it to that limit. So that doesn't mean I can't still do that same, say, exercise routine. I changed the recipe to fit my lifestyle now. So instead of doing maybe 50 reps, maybe I'll do 15 reps of something. So there are ways to change that recipe of lifestyle.
I 100% agree. And I think that's kind of the beauty of some of this is because I think there's a lot of trying to find, it takes a little bit of time to find your perfect recipe. And one thing that I say to people is, I do a lot of work also with people's nervous system and how stress and things like that. And that plays a huge role in all this. So when I'm in a period, March for me, for example, March was just all over the place, like go, go, go. Wasn't originally planned that way, but that's how it was. So my recipe for what my day-to-day life looked like was a little bit more sleep, prioritizing a little bit more rest, really making sure I was getting good nutrition and going for walks, maybe instead of high intensity intervals, because my nervous system, my body was just like, we need to just rest and get through this. And now I'm into April, and even I was laughing at myself this morning. I had like a slower couple of days, like, wow, I feel like my energy's back. I can actually like go do something a little higher intensity right now. So another thing that I always encourage or recommend people is to notice those ebbs and flows in their own life and be okay with adjusting the recipe when they need to based on how they're feeling.
Yeah, that is amazing because, as we talk about with Two Sisters, we have a combination of, mindset, like we have a theme for every day, Monday through Friday, which obviously includes different aspects of all of health and wellness, because it's not, one size fits all. You can have a great trainer that is so physically fit, toned, running a marathon, and, they get behind closed doors and they're crumbling because their mindset's not right. Or you can have someone who, oh my God, they've got it all together, and you don't know that they're, shutting the door and vomiting. I mean, there's so many aspects, and then the mind, the mental piece to it. So I think that's huge. Don't you think, Gia?
Yeah, absolutely. And, as we talk about mindset, and as you were describing your March, I can totally obviously relate with that. And it's important to recognize those ebbs and flows, but also not to, which I'm guilty of, a few years ago of doing it, is using that as my escape route, not to do something like justifying why I am making that decision. So, excuse me, thank you for pointing that out, because that is so important to reach your goals. Like, goals are tough. Goals are hard. And I've often said we need to choose our hards, but choose them wisely. Because how are we going to get to our goals?
Totally agree. And I think to your point with I've thought for a while, or I've thought to myself from time to time, am I listening to my body here, or am I just making excuses? And I think there's a fine line there when it comes to some of these choices. And one thing that I kind of recommend, I love Mother Nature. I could like go live in the woods and probably never come back. But I think about the seasons of the natural world, right? And obviously some places, they're not as big seasons. I'm in Boston. There's definitely a stark difference in seasons, but there's this, winter's a time that Mother Nature rests and it turns inwards, and then spring's an opening, and then then summer's abundant, and fall we're cooling down again. So when I'm kind of in this phase of trying to decide or trying to see, okay, am I slowing down because I'm listening to my body, or am I just making excuses? I tend to take inventory of like, okay, did I just go through a really crazy, busy out in the world, networking, social events, in-person stuff? And if so, maybe it is time to rest. But if I'm coming off a more rested season, an inward season, then I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just making these excuses because I'm having a hard time getting motivated or my mindset's not in the right place. So that's a very kind of an abstract way that I try to look at my like monthly daily life. Like coming off of March, it was go, go, go mode. So I did take a week to just be like, okay, we're going to just take it easy in terms of social events, in terms of exercise, in terms of, you know, works, maybe take a day off here and there. And now I'm heading back in. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to kind of dive back in, open some things up. So I try to look at it from that seasonal lens, in the sense that you're going to follow this cycle of productivity, rest, growing, evolving, and try to keep myself, I was going to say honest, keep myself honest and recognize that like, I'm not always going to be in one place, and I can't use that as an excuse, but I can notice where I am. I hope that makes sense.
And there's definitely cues for someone to kind of be in tune to their mind and body where they're at. And, you know, some people, you know, are just natural homebodies and, you know, can kind of take care of some of those needs. And other people, you know, they're all over the place. And then you've got the in-between person. So you always got to recognize where your mind is and be gentle to yourself to say, you know what, I need a timeout. You know, you stay off of social media. Would be a big one. Even though with an entrepreneur, you know, it's kind of the devil's advocate. We need social media, but also, you know, addressing like, okay, it's time to put it down and, you know, let me go read a book. Let me go journal. Let me go meditate, or, you know, go for a swim, do something fun that makes me giggle to kind of bring me back to a happy place. So we always got to be in tune to that. And as far as the goals piece to it, you know, we always talk about no goal is too small. Of course, you know, you've got short-term goals, long-term goals, bigger goals, smaller goals, but sadly, a lot of the smaller goals get left behind because we don't know that, wow, despite not feeling like crap, despite having a headache, despite like getting like just feeling yucky, I made my bed today. You know, and those are the little things that, okay, it's the, you know, little first success of the day. Maybe that'll bring me to a next success, which is washing the dishes or emptying out the dishwasher. So these are all things that we forget that we do have to appreciate. And when we're kind to ourselves, we will appreciate them more to say, well, you know what, today wasn't a total loss. I did get things accomplished. I just overlooked them. So when I hear the word goal, I think people tend to think big, larger than life, and they forget the little stepping stones that are actually little goals.
It's so funny that you brought that up, because I'm currently in the process of moving, and I always have a list. I'm always writing like lists down. I'm looking at a whiteboard over there. I have a little notebook in my pad, and I'm making lists left and right. I do it for my business. I do it for personal stuff. I do it for, you know, moving. And I was having like a brief disagreement with my boyfriend, and I'm writing a list down of all the things we need to do for a house. And he's like, well, you told me to do that. Why are you writing it on the list? I was like, because this feels really good to me. Writing something on a list and recognizing all the small things that I do and checking them off is really reinforcing that I'm showing up for myself. So I will sometimes write the silliest smallest things, like, like make the bed. One time I was in a really rough season. I wrote like shower, make breakfast, like, and sometimes it is that simple, like just doing one thing. And he's like, I don't understand. Don't you write lists so you remember what you need to do? I'm like, but it's also to show to myself that I'm showing up, and that each of these small things are going to get me to that big goal, whatever that big goal is. And I can't get there unless I do these small things. And mentally for me, that's how I keep myself on track on a day-to-day basis, is recognizing and noticing the small things.
And it's so funny that you say that, because I have like a list for my husband, because frequently there's also the male factor, not to throw the men under the bus, but it is a fact. How many times do you verbally tell them a list, an item that they have to do, and it goes that side and it comes out the other? I didn't hear you say that. So now what I do, in addition to kind of like what you do, is I have a list for him.
I love it.
Remember we talked, and I'll even write down, talked about it on Monday. Like if it's something like a big project that I know it's got to get done, or an appointment that, you know, he needs to be reminded of.
Right.
Because they are not naturally list people. I mean, how many times do you hear that old saying, I got to give my the list to my husband to go to the grocery store. He's offered and he's not coming back with, what's on the list. So
Right.
I kind of giggled when you were saying that because I was thinking of what I do to my husband.
Oh, so much I can say on that subject. For sure. But with that being said, those lists are an important part of everybody's life. And by the way, this has something to do about nothing, but has to do with what we're chatting about. The word of the day yesterday was henpeck. And I don't know, I kind of pictured the word of the day yesterday. So I just wanted to share that.
So old, and that I can't even believe that would even come up because it's so old. A lot of people would even understand what that means.
Yeah, half these words, I'm like, where did these words come from? But anyway, that's not the topic of today's discussion. It's so important to recognize that so that you can, you feel good about what you've accomplished. Carol Sue and I have both been traveling so much, and in between traveling, I moved my office from upstairs to downstairs, and you kind of get that discombobulated feeling. So having those lists kind of keep you in check with what you want to accomplish, what you hope to accomplish. I call it the HIPAA effect. In other words, head, pen, paper, thought. It's kind of that process of getting it on paper that solidifies what you want to accomplish.
Totally agree. And I'm definitely a person that I remember I was like back studying grad school. If I wrote something down, that was my act of remembering things. And I think when it comes to lists, and I think another huge piece of coming to list is writing it down is also recognizing that it's an important step in the journey too. The small things. Actually, back to my boyfriend, one of his favorite, this is very silly, one of his favorite like quotes is from the movie Zombieland, and it's like rule number 32, enjoy the little things. But I think about that all the time, even when it comes to goals, like enjoy the little steps of the process. I'm in the midst of redoing my website for my business, and it's so easy to get overwhelmed and frustrated by it all. But I'm like, great, enjoy the little things. Like I'm going to pick out pretty pictures to put on the website right now. Like that's one thing I'm going to get done today, and it's going to be fun. And I'm going to enjoy it, and then I'm going to put it away for a second and I'll come back to it. But I think it is having the list and it's a good, at least for me, a good mindset technique to remember to enjoy the little things, to remember to respect the small steps, because otherwise I can't personally get from like point A to like that big goal over there without those little steps.
No, too, and it's also an affirmation. I look at it as an affirmation. Yeah. It's one thing to, I firmly put it out in the universe, but writing it down for me cements not necessarily that I'll never get to it, or it just, because I'm just writing it down. I look at it, okay, I put it down. Now there's a clock ticking, right. Not for a rush. But that before, I expire, and I know that sounds kind of morbid, before I expire, that's gonna come to fruition. And to me, it just, be a person of your word. You wrote it down. Certainly there may be some derailments along the way to get to that thing that you want to do or that goal. But write it down, and you'd be surprised when people say it out loud and also write it down. It reaffirms. Also, like you said, if you've got some sort of, especially if it's a big goal, write it in several places so you can visualize it and you see it in different rooms. I frequently will repurpose magazines with things that are important to me, and I'll just tape over something, like even the cover of the magazine. Don't forget, hot topic, hot news, breaking news of whatever I'm really looking forward to achieving or a goal that I'm setting for myself. And I just think, again, it just is that affirmation piece to the mindset to always remember why and what we are doing to improve our lifestyles to live the life we deserve.
I totally agree. I love that.
Yeah. And, the other thing too, I just want to point out about men is it's just popped into my head. And I think it's kind of funny. we all know there's a difference between hearing and listening. Men hear, but they don't listen. There, I've said it. Sorry, I know that some men listen to our
Selective
podcast.
hearing. I call it selective hearing.
Selective hearing. I like that.
Exactly.
They know they're
Here-
doing it.
Carrie, I know that you're studying a lot of different things. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
I think the biggest thing that I've been personally interested in lately is taking care of my nervous system and teaching other people how to do so. As we alluded to, like the past few years have been just a lot of stress, a lot of different things coming our way across the country, across the world. And what I've seen in my physical therapy practice is a sharp uptick of people experiencing more kind of chronic pain and discomfort, whether that be like tension, tightness, aching, stuff like that, and higher levels of stress than I've ever seen before in my physical therapy practice. And part of this actually kind of ebb and flow that we were talking about earlier is recognizing that when we're stressed, our body needs different things, nutrients wise, movement wise, mindfulness wise, and that it's really important to, talking about different sort of listening, but it's really important to listen to our bodies and give ourselves the opportunity to recognize where we are. And one thing that I really love studying is the polyvagal theory. And it's basically saying, it's Dr. Stephen Porges. He's amazing. If anyone's into kind of learning more about polyvagal theory, I probably cannot put it as nicely as he did in his 700-page book, but it's just that we have all these different states of our nervous system that we can be in. One is that fight or flight, which a lot of us are kind of familiar with. We also have rest and digest, which is a common one. And then we have some hybrid states that are important for things like play and intimacy and being active and sports and like that. And the most powerful thing I've realized over my studies and experiencing this myself is that we have the ability to change our nervous system state through movement, mindfulness, breath work, self-massage, things like that. And it's really powerful because you might not know exactly what you need, but you can try all these different tools to give yourself what you need. And I think that puts us as humans in kind of the driver's seat and not having to be at the mercy of our doctors or even our physical therapists. I joke that I love being a physical therapist, but I want my clients, my patients to not need me anymore. I want to teach them enough about their bodies and to listen to their bodies that they don't need me, that they can make choices that they need. Yes, I mean, maybe that's a bad business model, but I don't want people to need me anymore. And part of that is understanding that we have these tools and techniques that we can use to change our nervous system state when we need to. And one of my favorites, I'll be honest, one of the easiest and my favorites, if you're feeling really stressed out, really go, and you want to take it down a notch, is lengthening your exhales. If you take an inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 6. That's the easiest, simplest way to shift from fight or flight to rest and digest. And that's just one of many examples, but it's so simple that you can use it. And it's hard to do when you're in that kind of anxious state, but it is so simple because you have the power to do it yourself and you don't have to rely on anyone else to give you that.
Yeah, I love that. It's a great exercise, the calming of the mind, the body, the heart. And like you said, the nervous system and that overall health and well-being. And a lot of people, the old fashioned statement, just breathe. There's a reason for that. And to take notice of how you're breathing. Some people, obviously the more they get excited, the more anxious they're getting, they're noticing that they're getting out of breath because they're just so consumed in the emotion. Instead of pause. Maybe put on some music and just breathe.
Yeah.
Slowly exhale and just calm yourself. There are some very natural ways, inexpensive ways, and ways that you can take control of your situation. You just got to be willing to say, you know what, ultimately, I'm responsible for this. I'm responsible for my body, my mind, my heart, my soul, my gut, my overall well-being. So I gotta be held accountable. Know that there are things that I can do without immediately rushing. I mean, there are some people that are just chronic, get get me to the ER, get me to that psychiatrist, get me that, and saying, you know what, some of this stuff I could probably work out on my own if I just allow myself that time.
Right. And I think it's also about being an active participant in the process, kind of like you said, taking it responsibility for I'm in this body, let me take care of it. And when I work with people, I joke, I'm going to throw a million things at you over time. What I encourage everyone to do is to take a piece of paper or put a note in their phone and call it their self-care master list. Every time I introduce a new technique, I want you to write down the name, call it whatever you want, like exhale. And I want you to write down a dash next to it, how it makes you feel: calm, energized, peaceful, motivated. And it's going to change for every person. So then when you're when you're feeling a certain way, say you're feeling anxious, you can then open your notepad. You can go to your phone and say, I really need to feel energized right now. I really need to feel calm, and look at that self-care master list and be like, okay, I can do this technique that we talked about. And that might be a technique that, I even encourage them, like, throw in things that, like, maybe you heard it on a podcast and you wanted to try it, or maybe, your friend mentioned it, or maybe your yoga teacher said something. Like, start making this list for yourself so that you can show up for yourself when you need to feel a certain way, and you can take that power back. You can take your power back, and it's really powerful and to do that.
Love that.
Yeah, that is amazing. And then, of course, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how would they reach out to you?
So probably the two best places are Instagram. I'm at Dr.Kerry McGinn. My website is almost redone. That's talk about small things. It's also kerrymcginn.com. And my email is contact@kerrymcginn.com. So I'm pretty much Kerry McGinn across most things.
Well, that's a good thing, because the bottom line is you are Kerry McGinn.
Yes, exactly.
Also, any closing comments?
Well, we so appreciate your energy. And love the fact that you add so much value you can see how inspired you are by sharing your journey, but also I like, that you're focusing in on the needs of your clients and patients. Sometimes a lot of people don't do that. They get too focused on, well, this is my journey, which, also is an important piece to it, but you want to make sure that they're accountable and they're, kind of finding out, what ignites them, what are their struggles, how we can manage them. And sometimes we got to pivot a little bit. And that's so important with a healthy relationship with anyone that's part of your health and wellness and well-being in life. And I absolutely love that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's been a lifelong goal of mine.
That's amazing. We want to thank you so much for being on today and being one of our newest members to the Two Sistas podcast family.
Thank you.
My name is Janice, aka Wellness Diva 5.0, and I'm going to turn it over to my sister,
TwoSistas, and this is Carol, so aka Naughty Boss. Hey, don't forget, it is Wealth Wellness Wednesday. What does that mean? In a short little bitty piece to it, go out and do something for an unexpected person. Now, this is not given to your favorite charity. This isn't, loaning money to your neighbor, your friend, whatever, your family member. It is about surprising someone unexpectedly and maybe changing the trajectory of which way they were going today and lighten their load. It's not about the financial dollar amount. It could be $1, it could be $5, it could be $100, whatever you want it to be. That's not the point. The point is that you're surprising them and paying it forward. And guess what? You're going to feel good because you gave to somebody else. And guess what? They're going to start that chain of kindness and passing it forward to somebody else. Just let's spread some kindness and help people out in the world. It's going to change your day. So I promise you that. With that, we will see you tomorrow for Trending Thursday. FYI, we're not exactly sure what time that is going to be because I'm traveling today and tomorrow. So we will let you know, but we will definitely fit it in. We're super excited. Thank you again so much for coming on our show. You did an amazing job. And guys, get with her. Try that. Oh, you said you were in Boston, by the way. We're in the Boston area.
Boston. So actually, I'm in midst of the move. I'm in Brighton, but I'm moving out to Western Massachusetts, the Berkshires, in a month.
Oh, the Berkshires. Okay, well, see, I lived in Charlton, Mass for a long, long time.
Okay, yeah.
You're going by there. So, make sure you leave your information so everyone can get a hold of you. And with that, everyone, happy Wealth Wednesday. Have a great, great day.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.